Hello everybody, Mike here with you on the Sonex 413 channel, welcoming you to our fourth installment of our Build a Capacitor Plane series, build along video. The other day I put up a short video to let you guys know that this video that we're making right now would be coming soon, and I was going to take it down as soon as I posted this one. But it ended up getting some pretty good comments and interesting stuff. So I'm going to leave it there. We're still going to call this episode 4 or installment 4, whatever you want to call it. The little short one I put up the other day, we're going to leave it up there and call it episode 3.5. So that'll work, I guess. Anyway, whether you saw that video or not, it may be obvious to you that there's been some changes to the design. If you've been building along, you've got one that looks just like this. The prototype now looks like this with some wingtip dihedral added. And what happened was Rich and I went to the field and put up a couple test flights with power on this the other day. And it was a little turbulent, and we encountered some problems that we didn't see the first time out when the air was smoother, and that is when it was upset by a gust in the roll axis. Instead of recovering a few times, it would enter into a spiral dive and not recover, and it would go all the way down to the ground. So can't have that happening. So Rich and I put our heads together, decided that airplane needs a little more dihedral. So right at the field I creased the wings, picked them up, and put a little clear tape, and immediately the flight performance was tremendously improved. Super rock solid stable, and it still managed a 50-second flight on our second little test flight before we put it away. The breeze was starting to come up pretty good, but almost a full minute. So it's possible that we may have lost a little efficiency by bending these wings up, but the increase in stability more than makes up for it. Now, one of the commenters asked in a comment, doesn't bending those wingtips up destroy the undercamber shape of the wing? Well, it does. What it does do is, of course, at the root, the wing is glued to that arced piece, so you're not going to lose the undercamber at the root. But yes, out where you've made this fold, it is a straight line. So what you've done is, by folding that wingtip up, you've forced the material to assume the shape where it's a perfectly transitioning undercamber airfoil into a flat plate airfoil by the time it reaches this point, and then the tip is a flat plate airfoil. I'll tell you what, it flew so well, I'm going to consider that it was a happy accident. I think that it for whatever reason, it seems to work really well. Now, if you don't like that design with the polyhedral, or if you just want to try a cool experiment, you could make a set of wings just the way we did for our build-along model. But if you remember, when we joined the wings together at the center line, we made up a little jig on the workbench with riser blocks to hold the wingtips at a certain height. What I would recommend doing at that point to increase the dihedral so that you don't need the wingtip cranked, at assembly time, I would make those blocks, I'm guessing, probably ½ inch higher at each tip. That would probably be enough, but I haven't tried it, so I don't know. That one would be up to you. If you do try it, I would love to hear about it, and the wingtips would be up a little bit higher. It'd be about like yay. Anyway, let us know if you try it. In any case, the performance was so much improved that we decided to incorporate the change, and right now it's an official revision level to our non-existent blueprint that we're building from. We're at revision level A now. We were at revision level no change. Now we're at revision level A. So if you're ready to convert your aircraft and bring it into conformance with Rev Level A, let's proceed. First thing I did was make a little cutting guide, and all that is a piece of real thin, it's actually corrugated, but it's super thin and very fine grained. That's 3 inches exactly at both sides, and then cut with a straight edge and a X-Acto knife. So we got a nice straight edge there to cut, because we're going to be using that as a guide when we make a cut with the X-Acto. So what I'd recommend is we'll do a little practice here on a piece of scrap. This is the same material as our wing. It's that foam picnic plate that you love so much. We're going to hold it near that straight edge, keep our fingers away from that edge, and where's the X-Acto gone to? There it is. Good sharp X-Acto. And just what we're trying to do here is only cut through the first layer, like the skin layer, and definitely don't go any more than halfway through the material. Ideally, we like to just go through the skin. So I'm just using a light pressure there, and it felt like I went through it. I'm going to just, no pressure at all. Okay. And I can see the line there, and now if I bend it, that opens up beautifully. The top surface holds together like a hinge, and then what we can do is come in here with our tight bond glue, whatever kind of glue you like to use. We're going to fill it into that little crack, spread it, clean it up a little bit, and then prop it up on the bench to achieve our 1-inch crank at the tip. So practice on a piece. Make sure you can do that. Make a score and then bend it back, and it stays together like a little hinge. Okay? If you got that mastered, take a deep breath and get ready to do it on the real airplane here. Okay, there's our 3-inch wide cutting guide. We're going to put it right with the aircraft upside down, right on that fuselage, so it sits full contact with that fuselage block. Then, holding it there and keeping my fingers well out of the way, of course, I'm going to do what we did on the top there. This is the bottom of the wing. There, I just felt it go through that skin there. I don't mean the skin of my fingers, but the skin of the styrofoam. There it is. And now if we bend it right at that line, perfect. Bends right there, nice and clean. We didn't make any pencil marks on the airplane or anything, and we got a nice parallel cut, parallel to the fuselage. So let's grab our glue of choice. Once again, I like the tight bond. Gives you a little time to play with it. And another reason is the cleanup, because we're going to apply some glue into this joint and then clean it up with a paper towel. Now, just using my finger to take away the excess material and make sure that there's some in the entire groove. Okay. Now let me clean my hands off real quick. And now we're going to take a corner of a paper towel that's been dampened, and we're just going to clean off the excess glue there. Don't disturb the one that's in that little kerf there, but being a water soluble glue, you can clean this up. And now let's see, one more little wipe there. Beautiful, beautiful. And anything that's up there and got on the surface, little wipe with that damp paper towel. So now I can see the glue in there. Beautiful. Now set up something with a flat surface that you can let the fuselage pod overhang. I'm just going to use a block of foam. I'm going to put it on the block with a little weight there to hold it down. Well, not that one, because I'm going to need that, right? Let's see what I can use. I know what. My little whetstone that I use for sharpening the X-Acto. Then we're going to find some kind of little object, could be anything, maybe our capacitor here, put it under the tip, and then set this up at 1 inch. And by golly, that's a good guess right there. We're just about there. Slight adjustment. There we are, right at 1 inch. The inboard wing panel flat on the surface, fuselage overhanging the block. You could use a book or something if you want, or an old VHS tape case or something, and then block that up to 1 inch, let it dry, do the same thing to the other side, and you've got your wingtip dihedral. It's called polyhedral because there's a break here and a break there. Polyhedral wing. I like the looks of that. As I say, if you want to go with the single dihedral break in the middle and just increase it at the tips, as I say, I would estimate that at assembly you'd add probably ½ inch at each tip, would probably get you there. Okay, I'm going to cut the camera off at this point. I'm going to let this glue joint dry. I'm going to do the other side, and when I join you back here, we'll take it from there. Alright, hang in there, guys. Okay, we're back and that glue is dry. We've got a nice polyhedral in each tip. Now we're going to take a little detour, put that aside, and get out your little slide switch. You remember we made a little wooden frame to go around that. I'll put up a picture close up of this because you probably can't see it too well. But we're going to do a step now. This is optional but recommended. We're going to, in preparation for soldering wires onto those later, we're going to take a minute right now and tin the contacts there. What that means is like pre-soldering it, putting a little bit of solder on those connections so that later we don't have to apply solder when we're doing the final hookup. We're just going to put a little heat to it, touch the wire to it, and it should produce a nice solder joint. Alright, I was trying to set it up here so you can see me doing it. Oh, I know how I can do it. Hold on. We got to improvise a little. There it is. I think you can probably see that now. If not, I'll show you a close-up of the finished product. All we're going to do here is take our little, whatever this is, about 30-watt small soldering iron with a really tiny tip and little solder. We're going to use a little rosin flux there, and we're just going to go in and heat up each one of these contacts for a second and just put a little solder on it. Just, you can see the solder material flow right onto there. Now we're only going to use 2 of these contacts, but we'll go ahead and solder all 3 because we may get it mixed up when we install it there. Okay, we've got our switch contacts tinned. Now I'll just put up a close-up here so you can take a look. And if you can see the little solder has flowed onto those tips there, that's what we want. It's going to make soldering the wires on real easy. Okay, back to the live action. We're going to install our switch. Let's take a look at how we've got it on our prototype. You can see I've got it vertically mounted, and I don't mind using it that way. works okay. You can do it whichever way you want. Richie asked that I put it front to rear. It would make it easier for him to launch. So it's up to you. This way you could possibly do it with one hand to launch. The other way I think you can too. So in deference to Rich, I'm going to install it fore and aft. Now there it is, and the little contacts there, if I'm careful, I can just press them into the foam and get my location. We're going to go right on the upper, as far up as we can go under the wing, and roughly even with the leading edge of the wing, and just press those pins into the foam, and then we can take our X-Acto, wherever it is, there it is, and we can mark around that. All four sides. There, and that's where our switch is going to go. So we're going to cut that out, and we'll go right through to the other side of the airplane. We're going to leave a square hole here. We'll fill it in with that switch, don't worry. You know what, I'm going to stop and put a little bit of a blade on, or edge on my blade. Go ahead and finish cutting that out and decide which side of the airplane you want to operate the switch from. I'm right-handed. I like to launch with my right hand, and so I want the switch on the left-hand side of the airplane here. If you're left-handed, you might want to go the other way. Either way will work. Okay, I'm going to sharpen my blade, cut this out, and I'll be right back. Alright, I've got our hole roughly cut out there. It's a little snug of a fit. I'm going to use that custom sanding stick and just even out those edges a little bit, and then retry the fit. That might do it. Sure. Nope, a little crooked there. Alright, and you can see that goes right in there, very sweet. And flip it around, look at the other side, and now you've got to decide, do you have the skills to solder little wires onto those? Because depending on how thick your fuselage is, it may be a little recessed there. I think I can probably do that. If you don't think you can, we'll put some wires on them right now so that you can you don't have to solder in the hole. I guess I'll do mine that way too, just so I can show you guys. So we know that our switch fits in there very nicely. Let's pop it back out of there, and we'll solder a couple little pieces of hookup wire onto that switch and then install it. That'll accommodate you guys that have a fuselage that's a little thicker, or your soldering skills are a little lacking or whatever. We'll make it a little easier. So let me plug in my soldering pencil and get the flux ready and a couple little pieces of hookup wire, and we'll be right back with that. Okay, we're getting ready here to solder up a couple little wire leads to our switch, and that way we don't have to do it when it's installed. A couple little pieces of thinnest hookup wire you can find. Strip the end, a little piece there off the end. Now, same thing we did to the switch terminals. We're going to pre-tin the wire there, and that'll make it easier to do our actual solder joint. I'm going to put just a little bit of solder on that iron, and then just make it attached to that wire. A little bit of flux maybe. There we go. Now, I doubt very much that you can see it, but we've got solder into the last 1/16 of an inch of that wire, or something about like that. Now, and we've also got our leads already pre-soldered or tinned on the switch. So now all we should have to do, without applying any more solder, we're just gonna put them together and touch it with the iron. And there, like magic. Well, you know what, I'm going to do that a little. When I get a closer look at there, it didn't look that good. I'm going to do it again. Oh yeah, that is nice and neat, and it's attached. Okay. Slide that insulation back while it's warm. I can put a little piece of heat shrink there too. Now, we just soldered that onto one of the end outside terminals on that switch. And now we're going to solder one to the center terminal of that switch. So once again, take the end of our wire. Let's get some solder going here. A little solder on the end of the wire. Very nice. And then hold it in position there. And I know you can't see this. I can hardly see it myself. By golly, I think we caught that. Okay. Unplug the soldering pencil. And I've got some little tiny heat shrink tubing here. This is optional. You are adding a little bit of extra weight, but I've got to say, well, there it is. You can see it. Good hook up there. When I soldered it, that wire oh, we broke one off. I'm gonna have to resolder that. My golly. Alright, well, now's the time. I'd rather have it break now than at the field. This is so tough to do because everything is so tiny. Alright, we're gonna try that one more time now. There's our piece of wire that broke off. Let's re-tin it. A little blob of solder right there on the end of the wire. Yep. And right onto the switch. Sometimes it helps if you talk to it, I don't know. I think we might have got it that time. Alright. Then, let me inspect it here. Looks good to me. If your eyes are like mine, you might want to use a magnifying glass and look at that. You want to save a little weight. I guess you're only trying to keep these wires from touching each other, so probably even just one piece of heat shrink would do the job, right? That other one's not going to touch this one once it's got a piece of insulation on it. Oh, still enough heat in that iron to just shrink that one wire. There we go. You know, that looks nice. I'm going to put that second piece of heat shrink on there and just provide a little strain relief for this wire. Now, this is often the case when you're building. You make little changes and modifications and decisions as you go along. Alright, just enough heat left in that iron to get that shrunk. So now we've got our switch with a couple of wires on it, and we're hooked to the center terminal and one of the outside terminals. Now when we move that switch to the side where the two wires are, that makes it run. I want to have that actually or now would be a good time to make sure that switch still works after the solder job. This one works nice and smooth, so we're good for install. As I said, the on position is when the little switch is at the end where the two wires are hooked up. This third terminal on top here is not doing anything. I want to have the switch on as I pull it towards the rear of the airplane, so that's going to go like this with our wires, right, towards the back of the airplane, coming out just like so. And now I'm going to very carefully, like with a toothpick, put a little yellow glue in there, tight bond, on the outside of this, and being careful not to glue anything together of the switch. I'm going to go ahead and install that in there flush. I think you guys can handle that. There's the back side. We'll deal with that. So I'm going to break off here and get that glued in. Now what the heck, let's do it, right? You guys got to call me on those decisions like that. Alright, little bit on the switch, being so careful because, oh, let me get this under the camera. A little bit of yellow glue on that switch. Being ever so careful not to get it into the moving parts that we've taken so much effort to make sure they remain free of the glue. Alright, so just the lightest little bit there, just to prime the wood. And then a little bit for the inside of the foam pocket here on the airplane. Let's see, little piece of scrap. So here we go. Yellow glue on the inside of that. You don't want it drooling out of there, but you want to have it into the foam to make a good, moving the camera there. You want the foam there to be impregnated with the glue without being all drippy here. Alright, there it is. Hope you can see it. Let's drop the switch in with the wires towards the rear. Wires towards the rear. That'll be the on position. Oh, this feels great, actually putting stuff together on the power system. Alright, that goes in like so. There, I like that. Now, we'll let that dry for a little bit, and we'll be back to start making our motor mount. Alright, starting to look like a powered model now. Got a switch on it. Yours should look something like that. Yep. If it does, let's go ahead and make a motor pylon. You can do it two ways. It can be out of foam, or you could laminate some balsa like we did for that switch plate, and you could make it out of laminated balsa. Your choice. Either way, it's going to be the same shape. So, like we did in the original episode, making our templates, let's draw what our part's going to look like. Pretty easy. If you've got your ruler and pencil ready, start with a straight line, and another one is going to be half an inch. Whoops. Yeah, not exactly to scale, right? But half an inch apart here. 1/2 inch. Then we're going to do a perpendicular line anywhere. Okay. Now, from this intersection, we're going to go over 1/4 inch, and then from the same starting point, we're going to go back 1/2 inch. Okay. Let's put those dimensions in there. There's 1/4, and over here 1/2. Simple. Okay, now from this lower intersection here, we're going to come back 1 1/8. One and 1/8 inch. You have to figure out the metric yourself, guys. Alright, now that's all the points we have to draw, and of course you're doing this to actual scale. I'm drawing it bigger than life. Let's connect the dots here. We'll start with this top. We'll go from those two together. Okay, there's one line, this line, back to this intersection here. Alright, and then back to the start. That's our motor pylon. Looks like this, actual size, okay? And of course you can make it out of foam or wood. Now the benefit to each one, on the prototype I used foam, and what that lets you do is it's kind of squishy, not as rigid as the balsa wood. But what that lets you do, if you're not too sure of where your thrust adjustments should be going, it allows you to actually grab that motor and twist the plastic a little bit and make an adjustment right there at the field. And when you find the right spot where it flies well and the thrust angle is correct, you can then take some 5-minute epoxy, and with like the broken off end of a paper match, using like a little brush, you're going to paint 5-minute epoxy on that pylon. Super thin coat, just like a coat of paint. That'll stiffen it up and hold your adjustment in. On the other hand, if you're pretty sure you know where that thrust angle wants to be, you could make it out of a more permanent rigid material like the wood. But in that case, if you do have to make a thrust adjustment, you'll have to put a little slit and cut the wood, realign it, and re-glue it. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I'm going to be using the wood because I feel I've got the thrust alignment pretty well figured out where it has to go. I think we'll get it close enough with the wooden piece and maybe not have to do an adjustment on it. But if we do, that's part of the hobby. So either way, let me show you one more thing here. Either way, we should have about 1/2 inch of the fuselage block sticking out there, and this is longer than that. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let me see, mark where that goes. We'll line up with the front there, make a little mark, and then we're going to cut away 1/16 of an inch roughly, or it's a little more than a 1/16 because we got our root rib under there. But we're going to remove that little bit there. Let's see what that looks like. Where's my X-Acto? You might know it. There it is. Alright, we'll just take that little piece off. Trial fit it. Alright, I gotta take off a little more. I want this front part to sit on the fuselage block without a gap. And we're just making clearance for the wing here. There it is. Can you see that? So that could be glued right on there, on the center line. And nice and flush. We'll be cutting away some of this block in the front here later. So if you want to build out of the foam motor pylon, that's the easy one. You can just do like that, and glue it on there, of course, with some yellow glue. I'm going to shut off the camera and finish making my wooden one. Just cut it out and sand the edges and trim that little cutaway just like I did on the foam one, and glue it on there. I'll join you when I got my pylon mounted up. Okay, I've got my wooden pylon cut out. There's balsa plywood. I've got grain going different ways in the middle of that piece. I just make it look nice, get those edges nice and smooth. Okay, and then I'm going to also, same way we did on that other one, I'll make that little cutaway there. There's the spot, and again it's going to be about like so. Alright, I feel good, we're making some progress here. Oh, look at that, huh? Fits right on there. Alright, little yellow glue, baby. Nice thing about these models, boy, you don't use much material. You're using plastic foam that's just about free. A bottle of this glue lasts you about 100 models probably. So, a little bit on that surface wouldn't hurt a thing. Good deal. And then on that goes. And then, as we always do, we'll put it in position, eyeball it. Oh yeah, it needs to be straight in there. So we're right on the center line everywhere. I'm probably not even on camera. I gotta remember to keep it out here where you guys can see it. Alright, that's on there nice and straight. Okay, we'll let that glue set up. I disturbed it there. One more eyeball, check. Yes. Alright. So you've got a switch in here now mounted flush with wires coming out the back. We've got a motor pylon on there, your choice of either balsa wood or foam, either way. And we're going to let that glue set up. And I think we're going to break it off at this point on the video so I can post it. And I'm going to continue right after that, continue shooting footage here of installing of the motor and capacitor. We're in the home stretch, gang. Alright, so stick with it. Stop when you got something that looks like this. Let that glue dry up, and we'll see you in the next episode here. This is Mike saying have a good day, have fun building. Hit that like button down there underneath the video. If you're not a subscriber to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell so you know when we make a post. Alright, have a good day everybody. Bye.